fraud awaiting trial 14, robbery awaiting trial 8, fraud 7. So effectively, these are members in the system who are awaiting trial or convicted for these crimes.
With the exception of fraud, Ms.
Except for the exception of fraud.
Yes.
Yes.
The murder, there is already a little bit lower down, there is 4 officers that's been found guilty for murder as well. So there is 15 awaiting trial, meaning they haven't been found guilty yet. Their trial is still ongoing. But further down the list, there's 4 for murder. There's 4 for rape. There's 3 for robbery. So even though at the top there's a awaiting trial portion, there is officers that have been found guilty already that is in the service with criminal records, very serious criminal records.
And you say those convictions are in respect of murder, rape, and fraud, did you say? The convictions.
If I categorize from what I consider as serious crime for police officers, there's like negligent loss of firearm is 6, but if we go to things like extortion is 5, housebreaking is 5, kidnapping is 5, murder is 4, rape is 4, robbery is 3, pointing of firearm, the defeating, gathering act. So from the highest list, which is more related to the Schedule 1 type of offences, the murder, the rapes, and that there is, and then there's at the top the awaiting trial portions that is still not concluded.
Just to make sure we read it correctly, in some instances, taking for instance, an example, fraud. You have fraud awaiting trial, then you have fraud. You see that at the top. Correct. Where you have not indicated awaiting trial, does that mean the figures you give are in respect of convictions?
Correct, Commissioners.
So anything here that is not highlighted as awaiting trial, these are all members have these convictions, including rape, murder.
Correct, Commissioners.
And they're in the system.
Correct.
And robbery.
Yes, Chair. Okay.
Commissioner, because you said earlier that when you join the service, you get vetted, can we conclude from this document that these offenses were committed after the members entered the service? Because I'm assuming if they were committed before, you would not have become a member of EMPD because you would have failed the vetting.
No, Commissioner. That is unfortunately an assumption on your side.
Yeah.
Some of these cases stem back from the late 80s, 90s, and how the officers passed the initial recruitment process is also unknown to me then, because their fingerprints were taken, but how they get forced into the system, I don't know. But these records obviously relate to everything the South African Police Service have as a criminal record based on the fingerprints. And some of the cases, if you look at the convictions, the conviction dates were long ago as well, prior to their actual appointment date. There's one which is a very strange matter. It has been reported to us as well. There was an officer, he's out of the service now because he got caught again and then he was sentenced to imprisonment and he sits in prison. The officer was found guilty of murder. He was never sentenced. And this is a very old case, which I don't understand as a policeman how that happened, if you can be found guilty of murder and then not sentenced. But it's an old case. It's things that we picked up.
What is the policy? What is the EMPD policy regarding the employment of people who have previous convictions?
It's legislation that prescribes it. It's in terms of Regulation 11 of the Municipal Police Services, one of the requirements of the minimum requirements to be appointed as a member is that you may not have a previous criminal record, except if it's politically motivated or there's a specific wording related to that. But it is, you may not have a criminal record upon appointment. It's one of the it's one of the challenging factors we have, specifically of interpretation in Ekurhuleni, not in the rest of the country, but in Ekurhuleni they interpret the words, because the sub-regulation starts with the exact words, upon appointment, you may not have a criminal record. They take it as upon appointment, not your career. So it's as if they, as HR, think, well, you can be appointed and thereafter you can build a career of criminals. And that is maybe something that need to be changed, that it makes the word less interpretation available for people to say, but you may never have a criminal, in my mind, you may never have a criminal record as a policeman. There could be, and this is something that I say with respect, there could be matters that is happening in your career, which could be waived, or there could be a process of expungement that happened. As an example, you could be involved in an incident where there's, let's say, serious robbery or a cash in transit, and there's a shooting incident, and you accidentally, you shoot a robber, but you also shoot an innocent citizen, and you get found guilty for culpable homicide maybe in that matter. In the execution of your duties, and you won't really have intent or anything like that, there could be an expungement process if the law allows it. But at the moment, the law states, upon appointment, you shall not have a criminal record. And this is interpreted by Ekurhuleni HR to mean that that day when I was appointed, 1 April 1991, I didn't have a record then. Or when we established as a Metro Police, 16 February 2002, I didn't have a criminal record at that day. But thereafter, it is an open field according to them. There is no policy as well, and that is problematic. There's no policy what happens if an officer do get a criminal record during his service. There should be an incapacity process where you are not fit to be a policeman anymore, and you should be worked out of the system. One of the things that is absolutely critical, but this is my own opinion, there's a few others that have the same opinion, is that in terms of the singularity of what the Constitution, singularity of policing in the country, where all policing service must be the same manner, is that we can have different payrolls, meaning that local government, you're employed by local government or you're employed by national police. But at the bottom end, the standards of a disciplinary agreement, the way that you are being dealt with as a policeman should be the same. We have, for instance, a large challenge because my officers are locally bound. Ekurhuleni officer is employed in Ekurhuleni. The Ekurhuleni HR systems, computer systems, for instance, doesn't have access to Home Affairs, Harness, or the African Police. There's no interface between these systems. So my officer can physically go to Durban on holiday, and he can commit a rape, he can commit a robbery, he can commit anything wrong there. We will never know it happened. The officer can come back, and every time he has to appear in court, he takes a day's leave and he fly out, and we will only discover it if he doesn't pitch for work one day because he sits in prison. And we have there's even a strange anomaly that happened now. One of our officers was found guilty of murder. He actually, at Vosloorus police station, he shot and killed his wife, who was a captain in the police. He shot and killed her in the charge office of the police station. Our police station and their police station is very close to one another. They're separated by like a parking space between us. And he shot and killed his wife. He came out of the police station, and then obviously everyone, it's blue on blue, police and Metro Police all rush out because of the shot. And then he tried to commit suicide, and he shot himself in the head. He was paramedics on scene, rescued. He actually looks like he sustained no damage, and he was released from hospital. He was eventually found guilty, and he was incarcerated, and I believe it was like a period of 15 years. He came out on parole now in this year, and he lodged an unfair dismissal case because he wasn't processed in the correct manner. And Ekurhuleni reinstated him. So the systems doesn't speak to one another. And that is something that if we, for instance, want to take, if I want to check if my officer have a criminal record, I don't have any access to it at all. I cannot see it. The only manner I can do it is I take his fingerprints manually, I submit it to South African Police Service. I, as municipal police, must pay the South African Police Service either 85 or 180 rand as a government entity to South African Police Service to say, please check this fingerprints for me. They will take weeks and months to do it and then come back with a result to me. So I, as a police, municipal police, don't have access to criminal records of my officers. My officer could be in the in domestic violence incidents be involved at home against his spouse or wife. And the police could hold an inquiry about his fitness to possess a firearm in terms of the Firearms Control Act. Or there could be a domestic violence protection order against the officer, and where the court makes a ruling that he is unfit to possess a firearm. That is captured into SAP systems and court systems. I don't have access to that. What we have in the meantime arranged between us and the South African Police Service is that we provide them with a list of our officers' names. And then at the end of every month, the South African Police Service draw an extract of the firearm unfit list to us to say the following officers have been captured in their system as unfit to possess a firearm. But that is one of the critical things that is a problem, is that we have even approached SALGA, which is the the South African Local Government Association, which is the employer actually, to say to them, can we please, and we already had workshops around this, can we have a separate set of conditions of service for municipal police officers than the rest of council, which is aligned to this, to be similar to, it's not the same because it's two different organizations, but that we have systems and disciplinary agreements that a policeman must not only act in the same manner towards every citizen, but he must also be treated in the same manner at the back end. And that unfortunately doesn't exist.
Thank you, Commissioner. You concluded paragraph 52, basically that all this information was shared with Ms. Kasheka's department as per her instruction. So she and her department became aware of what you have just shared with the Commission. Is that correct?
Correct.
You then say this process was subsequently halted and to date no further steps have been taken.
Correct, Commissioners.
I take it when you say it was halted, you mean that it just didn't proceed any further than
Correct.
the point at which...
Nothing further happened. We haven't had any meetings further to that effect. Nothing else in the department took place.
Was there any feedback by Ms. Kasheka as the head of HR or her office as regards this vetting process? Was there any formal communication to
There was no further feedback from Kasheka and neither from Lefo, even though on the sidelines I harassed him the whole time and asked him what's happening. There was no further feedback.
And you recall from Chief Mapie's directive of the 21st of December 2022, he had indicated that disciplinary action will be instituted against non-compliance. What did Chief Mapie at this juncture, which we say is around the 6th of March 2024, do when this process was halted, with the results that you have highlighted in both Annexure RS20 and RS21 regarding members who've got criminal records in the system and members who refuse to be vetted? What did the chief do about all this?
Chief Mapie was already under tremendous pressure of being either suspended or placed on special leave. And I don't know if there was nothing that I, as Deputy Chief, ever saw that was ever done against any of these officers who refused to submit their fingerprints, or even the people who had a guilty, that was found guilty. There was no further steps taken against any of these officers.
So, you're suggesting that Chief Mapie could potentially have been under one of his many suspensions at the time?
Correct.
Because we know that he was finally suspended. The latest is the 25th of September 2024. And this is happening around the 6th of March 2024.
Commissioner Mapie was already in August 2023, after Brigadier Makonasi's disciplinary case has been pushed aside and trying to be stalled. There was already incidents where the then city manager, Mashazi, actually, in front of me, she said to him, I'm suspending you now. So this happened here 18 August 2023 already. So he was already suspended. Even though the records will indicate that at a later stage, they altered the documents to actually make that he was placed on special leave for 30 days. And Makonasi was placed in his position to act. So it was a constant harassment against him, and there was no continuity that anyone do it. But as far as my knowledge is, up to the date when I retired on 28 February, nothing was done against these officers at all. And the process was not started or concluded at all.
And equally so, there was no explanation from the upper echelons of EMPD as to the status of this process or why it is not proceeding. It was never communicated to the divisional heads.
Correct, Commissioner.
Was this, to your knowledge, was this matter ever reported to council of Ekurhuleni?
It wasn't formally reported to council, and that I know of. I do know that there were council questions. The process of council work where councillors will, during a council, they will submit written questions, and then the individual departments must answer. So I know that there have been questions from councillors that was raised in council, but because it is an HR-related issue, it was never answered by our department. We saw the questions, but it was always answered by HR. I don't know their answers because I don't see other departments' answers. But from Metro Police, it was because it is HR-related, it was always pushed back towards HR to say, answer this question.
Is it then fair to assume that equally so, you do not know what attitude council adopted on this matter?
No, I don't know
Personally,
the
you
attitude
don't.
of council against this matter.
You conclude then at paragraph 55 to say, to your knowledge, Brigadier Julius Mkhwanazi is not vetted, neither has his fingerprints been checked. I guess what we do is to qualify that as at the date of your retirement.
Correct. At
Things
the
could
date
have
of my
happened post your
retirement, he's not been
retirement,
vetted.
Okay.
Commissioner, that conclusion, while it speaks to Brigadier Mkhwanazi, it would be fair from your evidence to say, in fact, his whole specialized services unit that had refused to be vetted as at the time of your departure. To your knowledge, none of them had been vetted.
Correct, Commissioner. For criminal records,
For criminal records.
There's not a single person, except Commissioner Mapie, there's not a single person in the Ekurhuleni Metro Police who has been fully vetted with a classification from either crime intelligence or from the State Security Agency.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Baloyi. Commissioner Spies, that then takes us to your next heading. You had dealt with the systemic concerns regarding vetting. Do you recall that? Just to verify your paragraphs 53 and 54. You reference your own
Correct, Commissioners.
clearance.
It is, as I stated earlier, is that Commissioner Mkhwanazi, when he was instructed, the three of us were instructed to be fully vetted and as I stated earlier, crime intelligence as a division of South African Police Services is the one that was tasked to actually vet us all. But crime intelligence has huge capacity problems. So we then, together with the portfolio committee, was arranged that State Security Agency assist us so that there's two capacities where we can actually do the process. And an arrangement was made at national level through the Chiefs Forum, specifically with state security agencies to assist us to vet all the levels from Chief of Police for all the municipal police services, from Chief of Police to at least Brigadier level, at the top management, plus their secretaries and people who have access to sensitive information, because we all attend meetings with the National Police Commissioner, with Parliament, with Prof Joints, with Nat Joints, and therefore a decision was made that SSA will assist us to get this process rolling. And that instruction was given by Commissioner Mapie to the three of us that we shall ensure that we submit our fingerprints, a pack of forms to do this vetting. There's a very thick pack of forms and documents that you must add it. You must, for instance, add bank records and information like that. And Commissioner Mkhwanazi at that stage, he blatantly refused and says he will not be vetted. He is exempted from being vetted. That is his words that he actually used. He's exempted from being vetted. It's not part of his contract.
Commissioner, yesterday we made very good progress on pronouncing Mkhwanazi. Let's repeat please.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner, when you say at that point, Brigadier Mkhwanazi blatantly said that he will not be vetted, is this a different discussion in addition to the big meeting that you had where he walked out?
Correct, Commissioners. The first meeting that we had in the February was dealing with the vetting, and we used the word vetting actually wrong here. It's with a criminal check. So the first one was dealing with a criminal check of all employees, just fingerprints, criminal check. The vetting exercise is when you actually do a full vetting of, it's close to a lifestyle audit, and it's done by crime intelligence or by state security agency, where they verify your interaction with foreign agents, passports, travel out of the country. They have referees that you must provide, that they go and check your bank records, all your assets must be declared, and they then verify it, and you even go at the end of all the investigations done by them, you will go for a polygraph test, and only obviously if you pass everything, then they will issue a certificate or classification of specific vetting. And it was also decided at the meeting that we will be vetted up to a top secret level, which is only valid for 5 years, where a confidential level is valid for 10 years, to make sure that we have the correct vetting.
And this vetting, do you know if the city manager ever became aware that this was required to be done and that Brigadier Mkhwanazi had refused to do it?
I do not know if there was any communication to the city manager.
Thank you.
But sorry, Commissioners, it is part of vetting is also when you're appointed in the senior manager positions in terms of local government structures, you must also comply with what we call the COCTA aptitude and test, and vetting is part of that as well in that process. So she should have known this process because of, maybe not because of the police angle, but definitely because of the senior management angle.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Did you say that the call he made at a meeting was to the head of HR? When you say he was visibly annoyed, even frothing at the mouth?
No, he made the call directly to the city manager.
To the city manager?
He called the city manager, and then when
the city manager was aware then of the...
It was about the fingerprints checking that his unit and he hasn't been checked.
Okay.
So he made a call about that. It's not about the vetting. Okay. The vetting came a little bit later when the letter was sent to us for full vetting.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Spisset. And then you conclude that discussion with your own clearance certificate that you say it's valid until the 31st of August 2030. And that will be your annex to RS22, you confirm?
That's correct, Commissioners.
And this is issued by SSA State Security?
Correct, Commissioners.
We then move to the next topic from page 24, and here you deal with the suspension of Chief Mapie and other irregular appointments within EMPD. Let's start with paragraph 56, and then we'll take it from there. Thank you.
On the 17th of August 2023, early in the morning, there were WhatsApps being circulated that Chief Mapie will be suspended. And it's like, people make these comments and remarks the whole time. I just ignore all of that going on, and my officers complaining to me what's happening with this. And then the afternoon, we received an instruction that all the brigadiers and the deputy chiefs must immediately report to the city manager's boardroom in Germiston. Upon arrival, as we started to walk in through where the receptionist stood, as we start to walk in, and this is senior people, this is myself, the deputy chief, the chief of police, and the brigadiers there were, I think it's 8 brigadiers, I will just count them again, but I've listed their names. As we walked in, the VIP protection officers from the city manager who's protecting her confiscated all our cell phones, mobile devices, tablets, and even our computers. And they didn't allow us into the boardroom with any electronic devices. But I walked in with I've got a notebook diary, everything. When I attend meetings, I make notes of everything as I go along. Normally, I would make notes electronically, and then later I will, because it's faster for me to type and then write. I'm very ugly. But in the meeting itself, I actually made notes in my notebook, and I recorded the whole meeting from the notes. I tried to write as fast as possible as individual was speaking. And immediately after the meeting concluded, I left for home, and when I got home, I then typed that whole meeting over from the notebook, so that while it's still fresh in my mind, where I can see I used an abbreviation that only I would know, I would actually just expand the abbreviation and type the minutes over. I have attached that photocopies of my notebook as well to say, but I took photos of the specific notebook in case the notebook ever goes missing. Then I have photos of the notebook as well.
And the photocopies of your notebook are attached as RS23, and the transcribed notes typed are RS23 small a, in bracket A. Confirm that.
That's correct.
Now, and starting from page 96 with RS23. The actual notebook from which you took the pictures that now make up an extra RS23, you still have that notebook.
Correct.
Should the commissioners need to satisfy themselves that this is not your creation post fact? You have the actual notebook.
I still have the notebook, and I forwarded this in WhatsApps as well, so there's even proof to date and timestamp this. There's also, as I wrote to my notebook, it starts at 12 o'clock, and when I ended the meeting, it ended at 15:45 at the end of my notebook of this notes.
Okay. Having then confirmed that, I think we shall not subject the commission to your handwriting, so perhaps we turn to Annexure RS23 bracket A to understand what transpired at that meeting.
The order around the table, and as they are listed the attendees, it is the order that they sat. I sat with around the table in the boardroom to my left, and if you see my name is right at the bottom, just before Kasheka's name. The city manager sat at the head of the table, and as you go around from her, as I'm facing the boardroom, it was the city manager, then it was Chief Mapie, then it was at that stage Brigadier Mkwanazi, and then Brigadier van der Merwe, Deputy Chief Mazolo, Deputy Chief Twabe, Brigadier Nkosi. It was then, this side of the table was Mr. Letwaba, Director Brigadier Gina, Brigadier Mashlangu, and Brigadier Besaidenout, and then myself, and then Kasheka from this side. So we sat around the table. The city manager opened it, and she was lambasting the department and stating stuff that our revenue collection has dropped, it's no tools of trade. She stated that the ammunition tender has been refused because the NEL, at that stage we had an ammunition tender where the only manufacturer of large-scale ammunition in this country was PMP, which is a subsidiary of the NEL, Pretoria Metal Pressing Works, that makes 9mm ammunition. So we had what we call a Section 110, Section 32 process buying transversal from another state department process. And this failed because she refused to have it done because she stated the NEL is directly involved in state capture and we must go out in an open tender again so that we can do it. And she then stated she appointed Spies, who was me, but there's no changes in the department. This is a year after my appointment. And she carried on lambasting everything, low staff morale. And what is critical about what she's saying and the way she is saying it is that everyone else was then given a chance to speak, except I didn't get a chance. Just before the meeting, Commissioner Mapie spoke to me in the passages as we walked up the stairs. And he said to me, Commissioner Spies, please do not say anything today. Let us just take whatever is said, punishment, whatever is said, and let us go fix it at the back end. Because the city managers have to get you, don't say anything. So I said to him, Chief, it's fine, I'll keep quiet. I don't want to lambaste anything or bring anything up. We'll fix the department as we go along. So everyone got a chance to vent. But commissioners, when Mkwanazi started to speak, everything that he said was as if he and the city manager had colluded and they were speaking the same speech. And he was making comments about these de facto chiefs, that Chief Mapie is running as a bad manager and he's not running the department good enough because there's de facto chiefs. And he mentioned that I'm one of the chiefs that runs the department.
Perhaps, apologies, Commissioner Spies, it might be easiest and quickest if we deal with that side of things with reference to the actual transcribed quote-unquote meeting. And for that purpose, I would refer you to page 105. At the having listed the attendees and you highlight that the meeting was open, you have at the bottom of that page a recordal of what was stated by JM. And according to your attendees list, you have JM as the director, James Kwanazi.
He was at that stage appointed as the Director Specialized Services with a brigadier rank.
Okay, perhaps then if you just read that paragraph at the bottom of 105 to about literally the first quarter of 106. Thank you.
Commissioner, if I can just go 2 paragraphs back, because it touches on what later actually happens
Okay,
as well.
please
It
do.
states where the whole punch is through it, is that never before have we opened cases against one another and running to IPID to open cases. She can also play the same game and go to IPID to open cases against us. She can do the very same thing we do. Why are we doing it? It must be stopped. Directors are treated differently. One gets overtime while the others don't. And dealing with investigations criminally. There's way too many labor cases. It's clear that we are leaderless. The department is dysfunctional. And then she addressed Chief Mapie. Mapie, what happened? It's your second term. She addresses the chief directly. And then she asked who wants to say something, and a group of the officers put their hands up. JM then started to say, CM, he addressed her, he doesn't speak to anyone else. He says, the department is dysfunctional. We don't have a chief of police. I work for government, not using my connections. But in this department, only people who have connections are promoted or listened to. And all the connections are from Benoni. No one else in EMPD, and only they are close to the chief. We have another de facto chief of police, Duplessis, that gives instructions as if he's running the department, and then seniors must listen to him, a junior. And if you refuse, then he threatens you defying the chief's instructions. Another chief superintendent, Tipa, also have been arrested and not suspended, and no steps taken against. Then another de facto chief, Spies. I'm not even respecting or saluting him anymore. Said by him as nothing, but he runs the department. Projects, logistics projects never discussed with him or with ops, just to whatever he wishes. Supporting but sit in another land. No talking with ops, who took projects or even precincts. No funds, but before COVID there was funds. He sits at office, 300 people but no space. No toilet, all a mess. Another de facto chief of police, Nisa. He will deal with officers you cannot raise any issues. Cases are open and they do the planning exit strategy. Any Erasmus are remote controlled by Spies and Mapie. Integrity and standards are hiding in cupboards. Anyone not close will be nailed. I lost respect for them and refused to salute them. Operations, no one is clean in this department. Bricks is coming, nothing is done, no one is signing off. If his name is on it, then no one will sign. Ubaba, burying alive. He went to see Mapie and was forced to sit and wait for 5 hours. As a senior, he had to wait while he was in his office. He only saw him after Deputy Chief Mazzolo arrived.
And that those words you attribute to Brigadier Mkwanazi in the meeting.
Correct.
The meeting then continued, and I see there are different speakers, as your note reflects. Is there anything in particular you'd like to draw the Commission's attention to?
The other speakers had just very, very little to say. They had like 1 or 2 sentences. So Brigadier van der Merwe, for instance, that because she mentioned the ammunition tender, he just submitted to her that we have initiated the tender again, and we have submitted already application to supply chain. We're waiting for a contract number, and we have specifications ready. Then she answered him immediately back to say, but your specifications must be changed so that there can be successful bidders. And he answers back to say, but our specifications are as per legislation and are correct, but it will be submitted as soon as we have a contract number. The main portion, and that is linked to previous discussions already, when we procure ammunition, one of the requirements in our tenders is that the supplier who gets the tender must have a dealership license from the South African Police Service, CFR. Because only people who have a dealership license may deal with ammunition. And what has happened is that companies have been appointed in the past where they don't have a dealership license, they become a middleman. So they effectively will buy the ammunition from someone and then sell it to us. And that is illegal because you are then in possession, even if it's just on paper maybe. But the ammunition must be delivered by us in terms of the tender at our offices. And that transfer of the ammunition and moving of it, the company who provides us must comply and be legal. So there was an instruction from her that we must remove that requirement that anyone can provide the ammunition to us. And the answer was, but we cannot. The law says there must be this in it. And that's what Brigadier van der Merwe then answered her back. Mr. Mazzolo, just everyone you will see has a very, very little input into it. It was more, there's problems with our structure. The council was busy with a reorganization and the structure was not yet implemented and officers were placed. So a lot of officers were making comments about the structure. Brigadier Nkosi, he is also originating from the so-called Benoni officers. And where this remark comes from is that when the Metro Police were established, or the city of Ekurhuleni was established, it was an amalgamation of 9 existing councils, which is the Benoni, Kempton, Nigel, Boksburg, Brakpan, Springs, Alberton, Germiston, and Edenvale. Those cities were amalgamated into one. And obviously when the Metro Police was started, the traffic officers from those departments were the inauguration members and founding members of the municipal police. And then there's groupings, because officers obviously know one another well, they've been working for years together. So groupings started to happen, that there's a group of officers from Benoni, and there's a group of officers from Germiston, or a group from Kempton Park. And the illusion here is that the officers from Benoni are being treated specially. And Brigadier Nkosi is also an ex-Benoni officer. So he started to say, CM, the Benoni employees, that Brigadier Julius Makwana, and immediately she cut him off. Stop, don't speak about what anyone here has said. It's if you want to say anything else. So everyone was, it's as if the meeting was done so that Julius Makonasi can speak, she can speak, the rest was just there as ad lib for a short paragraph and that. And
Before you move ahead, I think we have a sense of who the main drivers of the meeting were. And for whatever reason, others did not or could not speak. I would like to draw your attention to at page 107. There is a conversation there, or there is an input being made by OB, and going back to the list of attendees, you have OB listed as Director O. Bezuidenhout, correct?
Bezuidenhout, correct.
I mean, I tried to read what you have recorded here, and perhaps you are best placed to explain it to us all. It starts at about midway of page 107, where OB says, ma'am, just 2 things. Disciplinary matters, hearings, outcomes are dismissed by 90%. That is going to deal with WOA roadblocks and the like. Would you like to expound on that, please?
The disciplinary matters hearings that he refers there to is that a lot of our officers, the disciplinary hearings take place, but because we are working under the SALGBC SALGA disciplinary hearing process, the chairpersons are not from the Metro Police, they could be from any department, and the officers are treated as if they're normal council employees. And then if the officer committed, for instance, it could be a matter of bribery, where the officer stopped an offender and he took money from him, and then there's a whole disciplinary case that happened, is that the officer it's possible that he would be dismissed by the chairperson, but then that officer will run to the Labour Court and he will be reinstated because HR will not contest the matter and the officer will be reinstated. It also happens when the chairpersons, when an officer, for instance, it's a simple incident that took place during COVID. There was obviously lockdown level 5 and 4 where no one was allowed to travel or move in the country except if you have certificates. And the police were obviously, when we were on duty, we used to work. So at one of our roadblocks, one of our off-duty officers drive into the roadblock. And he was then stopped. And as he was stopped, he jumped out and he ran away and he left the car behind. But because he was stupid, the officers know him. He works with them. They went to his house and that. But in the meantime, it was discovered that the vehicle he was traveling in was a stolen vehicle. And subsequently, he was then charged criminally, and he was found guilty for contravening the COVID regulations. The stolen vehicle portion, he wasn't found guilty eventually, because I think there's a challenge with the South African Police Service not cancelling the vehicle when it was recovered, or it was his neighbour's vehicle and he just borrowed it, and that he wasn't found criminally guilty for that. But in his disciplinary hearing, the ruling was that he be docked unpaid for 10 days. And in that unpaid, it included the public holiday as well. So he even got unpaid for a holiday as well. So it's things like that that Brigadier Besaidenout is addressing, is to say that our officers, the disciplinary process inside is broken because it's not done by us, it's done by HR, and HR appoints presiding and presenting officers, and those doesn't understand the policing environment, where we say if a police officer comes on duty drunk, to us it's extremely serious, because he drives a vehicle, he's in charge of a firearm, he can kill people while he's drunk. But to HR, it's just another employee who's drunk who must go to EAP and be treated completely different. So that is what Okut Besaidenout is referring there. The low morale that he's referring to is that there was, for a long period of time, we were not allowed to appoint anyone because of the structural changes between 2015 and 2019, and no structure has yet been approved, and we're implementing a new structure, and the existing people must first be placed in the structure. So it happened that due to natural attrition, is that the supervisory level, which is the more senior, older people, would start to actually vacate the premises or vacate the service, is that we have a large amount of officers acting as supervisors, and there's no real appointed. The WAs, it stands for warrant of arrest. We have a warrant of arrest units, and we do warrant of arrest operations with roadblocks, where the printed warrant of arrest and digital versions of that, we would stop public during a normal roadblock, and we will verify the existence of warrant of arrest. That is what he's discussing it. And then the Drager, when he speaks about the Drager must be calibrated or not, we received a donation from the South African breweries, where they donated Dragers to us over and above our Drager, but there was because it was their Drager to be used and our Drager, there was a discrepancy about who must calibrate them. It's not ours, it's theirs. And then eventually it changed into where a formal donation was made and a formal handover process where council adopted and then assetized and accepted the Dragers, and then that is what the Drager references to that.
Okay, now so I understand, this Drager you reference here, is that a breathalyzer tool to measure alcohol content in one's body?
That's correct. When you do drunken driving, anti-drunken driving operations at roadblocks, it's an evidentiary breathalyzer machine.
So, and one of them is donated to EMPD by SAB? South African Breweries. Okay.
Yes.
You indicated earlier, I think when you started this conversation, that you didn't get an opportunity to speak in this meeting.
Correct. It's actually.
But if you look at page 107 there, after dealing with the Drager, it reads CM, I take it that's the city manager. Rivo, no, you do not have your hand up, and then you say, no, ma'am, I did not have my hand up, and then you speak thereafter.
Because at that stage, she mentioned in the beginning that we've got a loss of revenue, or a lack of revenue, and my division, auxiliary services, deal with fine administration and municipal courts. We are the ones that report the revenue. So it's not that we can generate revenue, we're the ones that report it, because the officers on the road is the ones who write the notices and the fines, but we are the ones that capture it and actually deposit the money, so we can report back on the revenue. So I wanted to address what she said in the beginning about the revenue. And I started to speak, but then she says, no, Revo, you did not have your hand up, because initially she only stated who wants to say something and that. And then the chief interjected to say, because I did acknowledge, I didn't have my hand up, but she made a remark after everyone was given the opportunity that I need to address now. And then chief answered her to say, CM, I just want Revo to explain more about the fines portion. And then he says, Chief, no, he did not have his hands up. Revo, do you have anything to say? And I said, just 2 clarifications. And then she immediately interjected again to say, you're not dealing with what I said around the table. Only my issues I said in the beginning. And then I said, it's the 2 issues you speak with what you said initially. the one matter where you spoke about the one director getting overtime and the others not. This is at that moment, it's a highly contentious issue in the department. Because there are 8 directors, of which Brigadier van der Merwe is he's in logistics reporting to me, and the other directors is in operations. The Chief of Police issued an instruction linked to capacity about saving cost earlier in the year, where we were supposed to cut 50% of our expenditure budget, and overtime was cut and down to a maximum of, for admin staff, 32 hours, and for operational officers to 40 hours. And in that same instruction, the overtime for brigadiers was stopped completely because they were not supposed to respond to it. They're on standby and they're dealing with it. So overtime was stopped for them completely. They're also earning way above the threshold, the Labour Relations Act or the Basic Conditions of Employment Act threshold. So they're not really even entitled to overtime. But we did pay them overtime if they work operations or anything. And we use an electronic capturing system for some, and some use a manual paper feed. The e-left is the system that is being captured on. And Brigadier van der Merwe captured time due, meaning that he won't get paid overtime, but he will take time due in lieu of the overtime that he have worked. So he captured on his electronic system, he captured his time due. At the end of May, the payroll system paid him the overtime. And then he went back to the payroll to say, you made a mistake, you paid me overtime, I worked and it was stopped the overtime. So the payroll then agreed that the next following month, they will subtract the overtime paid to him again and then reinstate it on his leave side as time due. In this period, this is now happening. And Brigadier Mkonasi then went to the city manager and he lodged the grievance about the overtime. And Kemi Bihari was the chairperson of this grievance hearing. And Kemi Bihari then made a ruling, even though Bihari acknowledged that the pay office has already agreed that they will reverse the payment to Van der Merwe. Bihari still made a ruling to say that based on the fact that one brigadier is getting overtime, the rest must immediately get overtime. And then their overtime was reinstated. So this is my explanation to that matter, where they addressed the overtime of that, and which she mentioned in the beginning. And I stated it exactly as that as well, is that the lady second in charge of the payroll, Helena Hatang, they were discussing it on emails, and there's proof to this effect, and Helena answered him back to say it will be recovered. Don't go and, there was actually a joke, don't go and spend it, it will be recovered from him. And it was eventually recovered from him. But then, because of this outcome of Bihari, in his grievance, he stated that the brigadiers at this very high salary can get overtime again, and since then they work and get paid overtime again. And
Before you proceed, just put your finger there. Chair, I see it's 11 o'clock. Might this be an appropriate time to take your tea adjournment? And when we come back, please remember, Commissioner, that's where we pick up the conversation. Thank you.
Let us adjourn and resume at 11:20.
11:20, thank you, Chair.
You hear something? Get him! You're dead! You hear something?
Found him!
Where did he go? You! I'm gonna shoot you in the face! Can't hide forever! Whatever, not my problem.
Never mind. I'm just jumpy. You want some of this?
Got something for you. There you are. Did you hear that? It's him!
Flush him out!
Whatever that was, I don't care.
You see something? Don't know what that was. You hear something? Whatever it was, it's not worth our trouble. Who's there?